and they decided to take a break from all of this. Thanks to their influence, I've become a regular here. Luis, looking utterly uninterested, leaned back on his hands, cleaning his ear while remarking, So that's how it is. All right. You can take off now. Ballo instructed. Perplexed, he questioned, Sir, why the rush? Where exactly am I supposed to go? Frowning, he added, where else could it be? Aren't we heading to the autumn continent to look for a ship? Plus, we need to gather healing herbs on our journey? Ballo glanced at him, his voice dropping as he hesitated. Yes. But do you mean like, right this moment? We just got here. A dark aura started to swirl around Luis. He fixed a piercing gaze on Ballo. Realizing the tension, Ballo panicked and hurriedly declared, Absolutely. We need to go. I'll head out right away. Turning to Fee, Luis instructed, Fee, you should join him. She soared up and nodded, saying, Understood. After that, Luis turned when he heard a noise from behind him. He spotted Sai and Khan peacefully asleep on the bed. The little ones must have been worn out. He gazed at them, sighed, and mused. Those kids are out cold. They look just like little angels while they dream. Luis stretched and released a big yawn, muttering, Yawn. I suppose I should catch a quick nap. 2. A little while later, Mona strolled in with some snacks. She pushed the door open and cheerfully announced, Kids, it's snack time. Lucia, peering behind her, tilted her head curiously and asked, Sister, why aren't you coming inside? Spotting Luis, Sai, and Khan sound asleep. She gasped, Oh my goodness. Mona put her hand over her mouth, smiling as she remarked, What should we do, even while they sleep? They're just too adorable. Lucia added with affection. I know, right? They're simply irresistible. Mona and Lucia stepped out of the room. She flashed a smile and said, Good night. Lucia replied with a smile. Sweet dreams, kiddos. The door gently clicked shut, leaving just Luis, Khan, and Sai in the room, fast asleep. Perhaps the day had worn them out, explaining why they dozed off so fast. Downstairs, the tavern buzzed with activity as folks moved about. At a corner table, 2 men, a little tipsy, were drinking and chatting away. Luis ambled down the stairs, still looking half asleep and yawning frequently. Noticing his descent, Lucia quickly turned, her face lighting up with a smile, asking, You're awake? Did you have a good sleep? He sleepily replied, Yeah. It was nice. Turning his gaze to the dining table, he spotted Ballo already seated there. He glanced over at him, where Khan and Kanye were grinning widely, calling out in unison, Luis, come join us for breakfast. Lucia added cheerfully, I'll get breakfast ready, you just head to the table. As soon as Luis sat, he turned to Ballo, asking, Have you managed to find a ship heading to the autumn continent yet? Ballo responded, Yes, indeed. I found one. They mentioned it set sail in 2 weeks. Luis nodded in response, saying, Oh, great job. What's the status on the spiritual medicine? When it came to the spiritual medicine, Ballo rubbed his beard a bit nervously. After all, it's not something you can just pick up easily. Hearing that, Luis felt let down. He rested his chin on his hand, thinking, typical of a dragon. They must have mountains of treasures, yet. Spiritual medicine is something a regular person might never get the chance to see in their whole lifetime. Observing the man slicing up a steak, he kept mulling over it, thinking, human food is just so scrumptious. Apart from that, it does nothing for a young dragon like myself. As Luis pondered the journey to the autumn continent, he realized it takes about 6 months by sea to arrive there. Therefore, I have to make every moment count before we embark on our adventure. Noticing Luis's anxious expression, Ballo interjected with a reassuring tone. You really shouldn't fret too much. We're likely to find what we're looking for. Ballo added, regardless of what others claim. This spot is where all essential supplies from the frozen continent gather. It's a pivotal moment. Once Ballo finished, Luis felt a wave of relief wash over him. He smiled back, saying, All right, let's check it out together tomorrow. Just then, a loud clatter startled them as a large platter of food was placed on the table. The platter held a golden roasted chicken that made both Ballo and Luis jump and turn their heads. It turned out to be Muna delivering the meal. Followed closely by Lucia, Muna cheerfully announced, Hey everyone, the food's served. Meanwhile, Lucia quietly urged everyone to take their time eating, gazing at the steaming mound of food. It turned out to be Muna bringing in the feast, with Lucia following closely. Muna shouted, Come on, the food's here. Lucia, on the other hand, gently urged everyone to eat at a slow pace. Glancing at the steaming pile of food on the table, Ballo looked utterly bewildered. You've got to be kidding. Who can devour all this food so early in the morning? Hearing this, Muna folded her arms and huffed, I didn't set this table just for you. Uncle. Balo's expression soured slightly. Lucia kindly turned to Khan and Kanye, saying, Come on, give it a go. You two. The two kids perked up and chorused. Sure. Balo grabbed a piece of meat to chew, mumbling to defend himself. It's not that I won't eat it, but once he took a bite, he froze in surprise. Wow. This flavor. Luis had been busy savoring every bite, silently exclaiming, This is the flavor. Just like the dishes your mother used to whip up. Muna burst out laughing, responding with obvious pride. Hey. Of course, who do you think I am? Huh? Wrapping her arm around Lucia, who stood beside her. She added. Lucia helped too. Lucia blushed, crossing her arms and modestly said, I only helped a tiny bit. Remembering something. Oh dear. Lucia crossed her arms and shyly replied, I only assisted a bit. Suddenly recalling something. Balo turned and mentioned. Recalling. Oh. I remember. Lucia has a voice of an angel, which brought a surprised look to both her and Monair's faces. Luis, focused on his meal, turned to ask, Singing? Balo replied with excitement. Yeah. Lucia's voice is the best around these parts. He reminisced about all the times she sang. Captivated by the music, he noted. Any day Lucia doesn't sing, the inn is still filled to the brim with guests. The Xenon Inn earned its name for good reason, he continued. Somehow this inn ended up being a hotspot for gatherings. At that moment, Luis's gaze shifted, noticing that Moner and Lucia were both looking down. Silent. It seemed the two girls were lost in thought. Suddenly, Luis gave Balo a firm nudge, causing him to yelp. Ah! He clutched his arm, sweating bullets in confusion, only able to ask why. Meanwhile, Luis shot him an irritated glare while eyeing the two girls, filled with wonder. Neither spoke a word, their expressions as sorrowful as ever. Then Mer spoke up, her voice laced with regret. Lucia can't sing anymore. No. It's that she isn't able to sing. Upon hearing this, Balo was taken aback, pressing for more details. At that moment, Luis spotted something and glanced over. There. Both Moner and Lucia had their heads lowered, saying nothing at all. The two girls seemed to be lost in their thoughts. Out of nowhere, Luis threw a punch at Balo, causing him to yelp. Ouch. He grabbed his arm, drenched in cold sweat. He was utterly bewildered, barely able to mutter why. Meanwhile, Luis shot him a chilling glare. He looked towards the two girls, pondering. Neither uttered a single word, their expressions still heavy with sadness. Then Mare broke the silence, sounding regretful. Lucia can't sing anymore. No. It's that she's lost her ability to sing. Balo, in disbelief, pressed for clarification, unable to comprehend. What did you just say? How in the world is that possible? Why would such immense talent be allowed to fade away? Moner sighed, speaking reluctantly, as if she wished to avoid the conversation. Her reluctance was palpable. The air was thick with tension, and just then, everyone in the room jumped as the door swung open. Curiosity piqued. A gang of men strode in, their faces fierce and menacing, built like mountains. They resembled a band of tough guys. Spotting them, Louise quickly asked the crowd, What's happening? Who are those intimidating dudes? The patrons in the inn began to murmur. Someone whispered, They're here again. Don't they ever tire of this? Another added, Here we go. It's the inn's signature show. Confused, Louise muttered. Signature show? Just then, the thugs approached, looming ominously over Lucia and Moner. They were massive, overshadowing the two tiny girls. Balo instantly stood up, his voice steady. Who are you guys? Are you aware of where you are? Suddenly, a commanding voice echoed in the inn. Make way, causing everyone, thugs included, to turn and stare. They parted as if honoring the entrance of the individual. Striding in was a young man donning white trousers and polished brown dress shoes. With platinum blonde hair and a white fur coat, he exuded power. The sight of him made two of the thugs bow their heads in deference, gradually revealing himself. He appeared as an incredibly handsome young man with an air of nobility. He placed his hand on Moner's shoulder and kindly said, Good morning, Miss Moner. He then turned to Lucia, adding, I wasn't done speaking. Presenting a stunning bouquet of roses to Lucia, he caught her completely off guard. He knelt gracefully, offering the bouquet, and continued, You look exceptionally beautiful today, my lady. Watching this unfold, Luis was taken aback. He thought, Oh boy, that's cringeworthy. I can't believe this. Lucia, holding the bouquet, hesitated and said, Kaji, as I've told you before. But before she could finish, Kaji gently placed a finger over her lips, signaling for silence. He whispered, Shh, and winked at her playfully. You don't need to say much. Just seeing your face calms my heart. Stunned, Lucia fell silent, choosing not to say another word, while Kaji bowed slightly, preparing to depart. Well, I'll be off now. Wishing you a lovely day. As he turned to leave, his eyes locked with Luis's, creating a moment of awkwardness. Kaji was caught in thought, unsure of how to continue. Luis felt pretty much the same at that moment. Kaji curled his lip into a smirk. Annoyed. Luis thought. Is he actually smirking at me? This guy is poking fun at my height. Then, turning to Lucia, he feigned rubbing his eyes and said in a whiny, adorable voice, Lucia, I'm so sleepy. Can you carry me? Lucia was caught off guard but indulged him, replying, oh dear, is our little Louise feeling drowsy? Let me scoop you up and take you to bed. Excited. Luis responded, yes, please. Ballo overheard and blinked in disbelief. Master? Then, Lucia picked Luis up, and he cleverly wrapped his arms around her neck. She cooed softly. All right, let's head to your room and get you settled for bed, Luis said in a clingy fashion. Okay. As they moved, the scene was quite the sight. Key shook with fury while Luis flashed a mischievous grin. How about that? Jealous much? He bit his lip in frustration, grumbling to himself. Huh? You little brat? Then he angrily whirled around and stormed off. He shouted at his crew. We're out of here. His followers quickly turned and responded. Right away. Young master, this way. With his goal achieved, Luis pulled down one of his eyelids and cheekily stuck out his tongue. Huh. You think you can compete with me? Nenner? Naner. Then Lucia scooped Luis up. He slyly wrapped his arms around her neck. Lucia cooed gently. Let's head to your room and get you to bed, Luis said in a clingy tone. Okay. Watching the scene unfold, Key shook with rage while Luis flashed a cheeky grin. He thought, what do you know? You're jealous, aren't you? He bit his lip in frustration, grumbling under his breath. Huh. You little brat. Then he angrily whirled and stormed off. He exclaimed to his crew. We're leaving. His men quickly glanced over and replied. Yes. Young master, Ballo frowned, pointing in the direction and asking in confusion. What was that? Who were those guys anyway? Mona sighed and said tiredly. That was Key, eldest son of the Bant family. Hearing the name Bant, Ballo was completely flabbergasted. Bant, you don't mean that troublemaker B the useless, do you? Mona nodded, answering firmly. That's right. He's not a troublemaker anymore. He's now a baron. Upon hearing this, Ballo's eyes widened, hardly believing the words, and he exclaimed, What did you say? Bant? He became a baron, Mona reminisced. About Bant, an incredibly powerful and cunning old man, she calmly continued. Yeah. Baron Bant started establishing his influence in the underworld. An image of the old Bant kneeling on one knee, bowing his head before a duke as a sword was tapped on his shoulder in a gesture of trust. She continued. He was honored for his role in uniting the gangster syndicates in Lufin and stabilizing the port, earning the title of Lord over this area. After taking in the tale, Ballo let out a long sigh. Astounded. My goodness. That useless guy always boasted he would become a noble. And look, he finally made it. Then he burst into laughter, his voice dripping with mockery. Seems like the kid from earlier has a crush on our Lucia. Why not suggest she give him a shot? Mona rolled her eyes in exasperation. She sighed, dramatically. Oh, uncle, please don't bring this up again, Ballo replied in surprise. Huh? Why not? He's from a proper noble family now. Someone like him should be taken seriously. Mona answered without a moment's pause. That boy Key is only 14 years old this year. Just 14. And Lucia is already 22. Upon hearing this, Ballo's face turned to one of sheer disbelief. He had to shout. What? 14 years old? Then he laughed heartily again, his voice filled with humor. Well, that boy is quite the man, isn't he? With that kind of attitude, he's ready for marriage. Mona's expression soured with irritation. Her face was marked with indignation, and she yelled loudly. Seeing her fury, Ballo quickly made an excuse to escape. He awkwardly explained. Oh goodness. Time flies. I have to dash now. In the bedroom, Luis was perched on his bed perusing a book. Meanwhile, on the other bed, the two kids, Khan and Kenny, were sprawled out. Ballo abruptly burst through the door, his face alight with excitement as he announced to Master Luis. Meanwhile, Khan and Kenny were untangled on the floor. Ballo suddenly burst through the door, excitement radiating from his face as he proclaimed to Master Luis. Master Luis, I've tracked down all the shops that might have elixirs. With this news, Master Luis eagerly snapped his book shut and exclaimed, Really? Let's go check them out. Sensing some excitement in the air, Connie jumped in with curiosity. Master Luis, where are you off to? Khan quickly added. We want to join you. Master Louise attempted to deny their request, saying, Balo and I will be back soon. You two stay here and behave. Fine. Frustrated by not getting their way, they started sulking on the bed, one whining dramatically. Oh. No. I really don't want to stay, the other one pleaded. Please let us go with you. Just then, a voice rang out from the doorway. Master Louise turned instinctively. Are you all heading out? It was Mona and Lucia, who had just entered, each carrying 3 new outfits. Lucia spoke up first. You aren't planning on going out looking like that, are you? Mona chimed in. Change into these much fresher, the kids, delicate like flower petals, seemed to transform completely once they donned the coats. The trio obediently slipped into the smart attire, black down coats, with stunning gold accents. They looked so charming and cute. Mona couldn't help but exclaim in delight. Oh wow. Lucia mirrored her admiration. You all look fantastic. Mona approached the kids and gently patted Ken's head, saying, I noticed your clothes were too thin, so I brought these. Luckily, they fit perfectly. Kanye bowed graciously. Thank you. Afterward, she turned to Balo with a playful reprimand. Only you would let our kids dress so lightly in this weather. Balo's smile faltered, and he retorted defensively. That's not true. In his mind, he thought but didn't voice. They're dragons. They don't get cold. Master Louise beamed. Thank you so much, Lucia. I truly appreciate it. I'll look after them well. Lucia gave a slight bow and said warmly, You're welcome, little prince. The whole group then headed towards the door, ready to depart. Luis and Balo set off, leaving the 2 kids behind. Mona chirped, We'll take great care of the twins, while Lucia added reassuringly, Don't you two worry. Just stay safe. The kids waved goodbye joyfully. Master Luis turned back to shout his farewell. I'm off now. As they walked, Master Luis glanced at Balo, uncertainty in his eyes. Are you certain you can find the elixir? Balo responded confidently. Absolutely. You can count on me. Hearing that, Master Luis felt a wave of reassurance wash over him. All right then, let's go check it out. Balo nodded. Yes, sir. The town was still basking in daylight when the pair departed. The small streets sparkled with sunlight as they ventured forth. Yet, the sky seemed to darken, bit by bit, reflecting their intense search. Under a flickering street lamp, Master Luis crouched down, his eyes wide with despair. His weary voice echoed softly. There's nothing here, not a single shop sells elixirs. Frustrated, he tossed the paper behind him and turned sharply to scold Balo. What happened? You promised we'd find something crucial. Balo knelt down, tears welling in his eyes, stammering an apology. I'm really sorry. I can't believe this either. So, you found it. Huh? Tears streamed down Balo's face as he knelt, stuttering an apology. I'm really sorry. I can't believe it either. Luis Chu felt the tension rising, his thoughts racing. This is a serious dilemma. If this continues, will I end up starving to death? Then, a commanding voice resonated out of nowhere. What do you lot want? Both of them jumped, surprised, and turned to see. 2 gangs, looking like troublemakers, were squaring off. Luis Chu quickly asked, What's happening over there? Are they actually fighting? Balo recognized a familiar face and gasped. Oh my goodness. Isn't that the kid we saw earlier? He pointed toward Luis Chu, equally puzzled. Yeah. What's he doing here? Then Yemen, a tall figure draped in a red fur-lined cloak, the apparent head of the opposing gang, spoke up. That's why I'm telling you to give up on Lucia right now. He pressed on. You honestly believe my Lucia would even glance at a brat like you? Young master? Key was shaking with fury, biting his lip in annoyance. Not stopping there, the man teased him further. But if it were a real man like me, who knows? Right. Boys? A lackey behind him quickly added to the flattery. Exactly, you're way more impressive than some kid who still smells like his mama's milk. Key's crew couldn't take it anymore and unsheathed their swords, yelling loudly. How presumptuous. Do you have any idea who this is? How dare you speak so recklessly? Demon disregarded the drawn blade, his voice deep, each word resonating like thunder. Then, with a grim and unwavering look, he declared, Can we take this as a war challenge to the Yemen faction? Key's follower recoiled. What? Then, all of Demon's men raised their weapons as one, ready to leap into combat. This spectacle stunned Key and his companions. These maniacs! Then he pointed at them, roaring with wrath. So you're all out of your minds. Just wait until my father hears about this. Let's see if you can keep your pitiful lives afterward. Demon, stroking his chin, replied coolly, his tone oozing with sarcasm. We shall see. Then, adopting a scornful look, he sneered. I'm far too lowly to comprehend. Perhaps your lordship could enlighten me directly. Suddenly, a voice interrupted. Stop. All heads turned toward the sound. Balo and Luis Chu took a step forward. Balo stood there with arms crossed. His voice calm yet significant. I don't know what's going on between you guys, but brandishing swords at each other in the middle of the street isn't a good look. Spotting Balo, Key recognized him and exclaimed in surprise. You're the one I saw at the Smithy Inn. Demon shot a cold glance at Balo and said, You seem like a bystander. Don't interfere in matters that don't concern you. Just keep moving along. Upon hearing this, Balo burst into laughter, shaking his head in mock disbelief. Oh wow. It's been 10 years since I left this place. I can't believe no one remembers me. Balo has returned. As he finished, two of Key's subordinates suddenly shuddered. Hold on. Are you Balo? Could it really be? They shouted. Is that Balo the Bloody Axe? Balo remained unfazed, shrugging as he replied. Oh. Looks like someone still recalls me. Hearing this, Key turned his head curiously and asked, The Bloody Axe? Who's that? One subordinate answered. Young master. You've surely heard about him from the Baron. He's the one who saved the Baron's life. The subordinate reminisced about when the Baron was chased by enemies before he was granted his title. Back then, the Baron was in a fierce battle, trying to bring together the underworld gangs when he stumbled right into the enemy's trap. At that moment, he found himself in serious peril. In the midst of the chaos, he thought back to Balo, who was gripping an axe in one hand, while lending support to the Baron with the other. Both were badly wounded as Balo stormed the enemy's hideout with nothing but his trusty axe. Even after getting cut 8 times, he ultimately rescued the Baron. Upon hearing this, Key couldn't believe his ears and yelled out, What did you just say? That person is a hero in our family. He rushed forward and took Balo's hand with enthusiasm, overwhelmed with gratitude. He exclaimed, I never thought I'd meet you here. My father has praised you endlessly. Pleasure's all mine. Balo replied casually, remnant of his usual self, unfazed by the situation. Yeah. Just some old stuff from my childhood. He sheepishly scratched his head, clearly awkward. It's really no big deal. Haha. Luis So stood there, internally pondering while trying to act sophisticated. Demon chimed in as well. I never imagined I'd cross paths with a legendary person I've only heard tales about. He placed his hand over his heart and introduced himself. Nice to finally meet you. I'm Dai Monday, and I run a small crew in Luke Na. Suddenly, Luis So began to sense something unusual about him. A weird vibe was emanating off him. What's this? It feels disturbingly off. The man graciously bowed to Balo and continued. I see you know this, young master. We shall take our leave now. With that, he and his crew turned to depart, casting a final glance back as they waved goodbye. See you. Balo was left confused. They're just leaving like that? How boring. Meanwhile, Luis So kept a sharp eye on Monday, contemplating. I can't be sure, but I have a feeling that, judging by the ominous energy radiating from him even at a distance, he might just bring forth an enormous calamity at the Grand Bant family mansion. Batu threw his arms wide open to welcome Balo, with CA right behind, embracing him warmly. It's been ages, Balo chuckled joyfully. Haha, it's been 10 years, Batu responded, half jokingly and half playfully scolding. You're so unsympathetic. You should have reached out occasionally, Balo chuckled apologetically. Haha, I'm really sorry. Life's been tough, and I've been too busy making ends meet to stay in touch. As he said this, Balo gazed up at the sparkling chandelier in the mansion. I never imagined the underworld of the past would flourish like this. I must live long enough to witness and appreciate how this world runs. Batu replied, hands on his hips. It's all because of you. If you hadn't saved me back then, I wouldn't be here standing tall today. Balo roared with laughter. This charming kid. Ha! He then noticed Luis So, standing by as if he were about to explode with annoyance. Suddenly, Balo recalled why he came. He said sheepishly, Oh wait, I didn't come for this chat. Batu immediately got the hint and said, Key filled me in on everything. I know you're on the hunt for some spiritual medicine. He clenched his fist decisively and added, No need to worry. I've already dispatched people to look for it. In just a few days, we'll definitely track it down for you. The man with crossed arms suddenly jumped in. It looks to me like your family's clashing with another group. Will that mess up the search for the spiritual potion? As he spoke, Batu spun around in shock. Wait a minute, you're Balo, he introduced hurriedly, feeling a bit flustered. This is Luis. My nephew. The kid can be a handful at times. I hope you... Luis shot him an annoyed glance. Balo felt a chill run down his spine and muttered, Humph. I was a bit taken aback too. A nephew? He then thought for a moment. Yes. As you've mentioned, lately the folks from the Exxon faction have been a nuisance for me. Balo crossed his arms, asking curiously. Even if they're thugs, they wouldn't dare tangle with a noble too easily. What happened? Balo said. Honestly, the merchant guild ship I oversee, under Bader's protection, has recently been running aground for no apparent reason. You could chalk it up to bad luck. But Luis was all ears. Much to his surprise, the crews of the grounded ships returned, claiming their vessels had been haunted. Now, doubt is creeping into the minds regarding the Batur family's protection. He wondered aloud. Ghosts? The image of Wyman crossed his mind, looking devilishly clever. And he went on. Jan's been waiting to make his move for ages. He's being so boldly defiant. Hearing this, Balo asked with curiosity. In that case, why not ask the Lord for help? After all, he's the one who gave you the Baron title. But he sighed, shaking his head. It doesn't matter who it is. As long as Luan is kept in check, he just stands aside like it's not his problem. Wasn't I from the underworld to begin with? He continued. Even if Wyman snatched my position, the Lord wouldn't budge an inch. Balo could only sigh at this. Man, this is a huge hassle. Bitor stepped closer, slinging an arm around Balo's shoulder, adding, Come on. It's been ages since we've hung out. Let's ditch these worries. I'll treat you right. Let's hit the coast. Balo's eyes brightened at this and he exclaimed, Oh, that sounds awesome. It's been too long since I've stayed up all night. Suddenly remembering Luis, he turned to gauge the boy's reaction, who was stumbling while playing at the beach. Yet, Luis remained there with his arms crossed, his annoyed look intact, but being perceptive enough to wave his hand. Don't worry about me. Just go enjoy yourselves. As long as you snag the elixir, I'm all for letting you have your fun. Hearing that, Balo's face lit up like it was party time. He proclaimed, All right, let's drink till we drop tonight. No way we're going home sober. Bitor clapped him on the shoulder, laughing as he chimed in. That's my brother. Count me in. The two charged up the stairs, leaving Luis and Kaj behind. But Bitor didn't forget to tell his son, Hey, Kaj, make sure to keep an eye on Luis. Kaj listened closely, but Luis shot him an irritable glare. After hearing that, he froze for a few seconds, then shot a sidelong glance at the kid next to him. Louis didn't seem particularly well-mannered either, gazing at him intently as if they were on the same wavelength. Kaj and Louis both sighed, each pondering. Ugh, I have to hang out with this kid. How many years separate us? He lifted his chin and commanded. Come with me. Louis instantly shot back. Where are we going? Kaj glanced over and responded. Still curious. Where to? My dad told me to keep an eye on you. So where else would we head but to my room? Upon hearing that, Louis smirked. Fine. Let's check out your room. I want to see how well a young noble plays the role of a babysitter. Provoked by Louis' taunt, Kaj felt his temper flare, managing only a few words. Huh. This little rascal. They soon reached Kaj's room, which appeared very neat, tidy, and clean, yet quite luxurious. Plopping down onto a chair, Kaj said coldly, Sit wherever you like, but don't mess with my stuff. Ignoring his warning, Louis had already seized a knight figurine, twisting its arms and legs. In shock, Kaj jumped up and shouted, Hey! He snatched the knight back from Louis' grasp. Stop touching it. You're going to break it. Louis, amused, placed his hands on his hips, teasing Kaj. You act so mature, yet you're still a kid. Still into toys like this? Kaj felt his face heat up at Louis' remark, at a loss for words. No, it's none of your business. As he placed the model on a high shelf, out of Louis' reach, he declared, No way. It's not your concern. As Kaj placed the model up high on the shelf, safely out of Louis' reach, he said, This knight is a rare find. While he spoke, Louis' attention shifted to some letters on the desk. He picked one up and began to read aloud. To my girl, Lucia, this is the necklace that captures your sparkling eyes. Upon hearing those familiar words, Kaj's eyes widened, his face blushing a bright hue. He shouted, Hey, and lunged forward to grab it back. Don't go reading other people's letters. But Louis blocked him with his foot and picked up a box, asking, Is this the necklace? But Louis blocked him with his foot, grabbing a box and asking, Hey, is this the necklace? Then he popped open the box for a peek. With that, he opened the box, and Louis' eyes widened as a brilliant beam of light burst forth. Inside lay an exquisite necklace adorned with a dazzling blue gem. Seizing the opportunity while Louis was momentarily distracted, Kaj quickly snatched the box back and yelled, Give that back, Louis remarked. Your writing skills could use some work, but you sure picked a lovely necklace. It will probably look stunning on Lucia. Hearing this, Cage's mood lifted. Really? He held the box close, murmuring softly, Thank goodness. Searching for this necklace was quite the challenge. Louis then inquired, It looks pricey, but isn't it easy to find something like this? Kaj shot back immediately. This one is special. Holding the box carefully, he elaborated, This necklace is quite well known. It's the Tear of Zen. Louis reacted nonchalantly. Oh, so it's the Tear of Zen. Huh? Suddenly, he froze, as a thought struck him. Louis's expression altered dramatically as he exclaimed, "The Tear of Zen? Is that genuinely the Tear of Zen?" He couldn't help but ask in disbelief. "It's not a fake. But the real McCoy?" Hearing this, Kaj calmly replied, "What do you mean? Fake?" Even an appraiser confirmed. "This is the real deal." Louis was taken aback, thinking to himself, "What in the world? Why is that here?" He envisioned Zen, recalling the legend associated with it, thinking to himself, "Oh my gosh, why is that item here?" He envisioned Zen and recalled the legend linked to the name. According to the legend of the original tale, the Sea King adored his daughter more than anyone else in the world. He gathered his daughter's last tears and sealed them within a beautiful gemstone. The vision of the necklace featuring the blue-green gem came to his mind. This gem represented the Tear of Zen. The crucial aspect was that this Tear of Zen unlocked the Sea King's underwater labyrinth. The whole underwater labyrinth was essential for the main character of the original tale to gain power and progress. The Sea King's realm was for the characters. He reflected thoughtfully. "I need to be the first one to seize that Tear of Zen." Having resolved this, he instantly shifted his demeanor, lowering his gaze as he murmured, "Brother Kaj?" Kaj was taken aback, thinking, "Huh? Brother? Did I really hear that correctly?" Louise pouted with wide, innocent eyes, whining in an adorably cute voice. "Will you give that to me? Please?" Just a moment ago, he'd been sharp-tongued, but this abrupt change to sweet behavior was downright eerie. He froze and asked, "Are you sick or something?" But Louise paid him no mind, maintaining his act with that same whiny tone, slowly edging closer to Kaj as he probed again. Could you please just hand it over?" At that moment, Kaj finally snapped, shouting, "Hey, you little brat, what's wrong with you? You're giving me the creeps. Beat it!" Outside the mansion, Luis's voice still echoed, sending shivers down Kaj's spine. "Screw you. Don't come near me." Suddenly, Luis bowed slightly and called out softly, "Big brother." Key was left speechless, thinking, "Did I hear that correctly?" Luis had an adorable face with twinkling eyes, trying to be cute as he said to Key, "Just hand it over. Okay?" Key quickly panicked, pulling the box behind him with a shout. "Don't even think about it. This is a gift for Lucia." Luis placed his hands on his hips, tilted his head back, and remarked, "Damn it. Looks like that didn't work." Key ignored him and let out a deep sigh. Luis abruptly turned and asked suspiciously, "By the way, what if Lucia doesn't accept this gift?" Key was caught off guard by this question and replied, "No way. That can't be true. Every woman has always loved fancy presents. The bodyguard had said so." But Luis elaborated further. "Some people are like that, but Lucia doesn't seem like the type to accept lavish gifts without a reason." Key asked, puzzled, "Oh, is that right?" Luis calmly pulled out a chair, sitting back and replied, "It's pointless." With a mischievous grin, Luis sat down, smiled, and said to Key, "Take a seat. I'm about to teach you about real romance." In Key's room, he earnestly took out a pen and paper to note down what Luis was explaining, sitting across from him, saying, "So," he considered his notebook carefully and inquired, "First, I must create a bond with her before expressing my feelings. Correct?" Luis, munching on a cake, nodded and replied, "Exactly. And you can't confess out of the blue or shower her with pricey gifts." Luis illustrated with an example of Key presenting a huge bouquet to Lucia and continued his advice. "An abrupt approach will only lead to the opposite outcome." Key jotted it down quickly. After taking this in, Key's face fell, and he clamped down on the pen in his hand, exclaiming, "I've already—" Suddenly, he hurled the pen and notebook aside and shouted, "I've already done everything except this." Louise kept munching on his cake, replying, "That's exactly my point. When seeking relationship advice, you need to pick the right person." After polishing off the cake, he turned, pointed at him, and asked with raised brows, "But what makes you like Lucia? Anyway, what's your angle?" He was caught off guard suddenly. With a dreamy look, Key began to wander in thought and responded, "The first time I laid eyes on that girl was 5 years ago." Louise sat across from him, wearing a face full of disdain, flashing back to Key's memories. A girl with cascading brown hair was cheerfully humming as she serenaded the audience beneath her, among whom he was equally mesmerized. Lost in her melody, he continued, "The moment I first heard her sing at the Zine Inn, it felt like a bright spark in my otherwise dreary future. Her enchanting beauty and grace danced in his mind as he recalled her hand movements, radiant smile, and melodious voice. In that instant, it felt like she'd snatched my heart right out." Back in reality, after hearing his heartfelt admission, Luis sighed and remarked, "So, after all that chatter, You fell for Lucia's singing image. Key shot back. This was no ordinary singing. Lucia's voice creates perfect harmony. Louise coolly retorted. If she's such a talented singer, then why doesn't she perform anymore? He hesitated and admitted. That stemmed from a tragic occurrence. Flashing back to 4 years prior. In the inn, Lucia's idol was on stage, illuminated by spotlights that showcased her stunning form. To get there, Lucia desperately pleaded with her parents for the chance to see the show. Since Muna wasn't fond of bustling crowds, they agreed to let Mona and her family attend a performance. But en route, disaster struck. A man suddenly appeared, scrambling to rein in 2 frenzied horses, barreling towards their family. Lucia turned around in shock. But she couldn't react swiftly enough. The crowd erupted in shouts. Lucia, move aside. But it was too late. Lying there, Lucia opened her eyes, bruised from the blow, and let out choked cries. She propped herself up, clutching her aching head, calling for her mom and dad. Her expression darkened. Disbelief washing over her as she saw 2 familiar shapes before her. But somehow, they were surrounded by a pool of blood. Fear gripped her. Her eyes widened in horror as tears streamed down. And she screamed in anguish. She collapsed in despair beside her 2 beloved ones. Lucia's parents were lost beneath the carriage wheels. She shuddered, speechless. This shock robbed her of her voice forever. After hearing the heart-wrenching tale, Louise pondered deeply. So that's what became of her. She believed the loss of her parents resulted from her passion for singing, leaving her unable to perform again. He smiled, as if struck by a genius idea, thinking, if I just take care of this, he thought smugly, I'll do a good deed and score Zen's tear. With that in mind, he turned to Key and declared, how could you even dream of giving Sister Lucia Zen's tear given this situation? Are you crazy? Kaji reacted in shock. Huh? While holding the shimmering necklace, Louise proceeded, offering Zen's tear from Zen to the girl who lost her voice. If Sister Lucia accepts this gift, wouldn't it just reopen those old nightmares she had buried? Kaji exclaimed in panic. Is that true? I didn't consider that. Louise sighed deeply and said, oh dear. Looks like I need to start from scratch with you. You really are in the dark, he continued, addressing Kaji, who was perched across from him, listening closely. That's why I've got a suggestion. With a sly grin, Louise asked, are you interested in hearing it? That evening, in the tavern, the door creaked open. Louise strolled in and said brightly, I'm back. Mona was tidying up and noticed his return. She asked, oh dear. Where's the mister? Why are you home all alone? Louise replied casually. He went out for drinks with Mr. Twos and will be back later. Hearing this, Mona fumed. What? That guy is unbelievable. Leaving a kid to go home alone in the dark. What if something happened? Louise reassured her, saying, I'm totally fine. Where's Sister Lucia? Mona perked up and said, our Louise can't wait to see Sister Lucia. She's in her room. You can head up. Louise cheerfully climbed the stairs to Lucia's room, saying, thanks. Sister, I'll go up first. Mona gently responded, sure. Go ahead. I'll bring you some snacks. Louise ascended the stairs with a confident grin, thinking, all right, here we go. Time to start. Flashing back to earlier in Kaji's room, the duo was mapping out the terms of their plan. Louise declared firmly, if I can make Sister Lucia sing again, you must hand over that necklace. Kaji jumped in shock. What? No way. Louise scoffed. Why wouldn't you want to hear Sister Lucia sing again? Kaji paused and responded, well, yes, that's a point. But Louise quickly pressed. So, what's it to you? Is that necklace really worth more than Sister Lucia? Caught off guard, he denied it. Of course not. As long as Lucia can sing, I'll give you any necklace you desire. Louise, having achieved his objective, happily replied, perfect, it's a deal. If I succeed, you'll hand over that necklace. Kaji replied reluctantly, his face hesitant. Noting his uncertainty, Louise spoke earnestly. Is that all your devotion to Lucia amounts to? You said you'd give her the entire world. Were those just empty words? As if struck by lightning, Kaji decisively sealed the agreement with Louise, stating, all right, just make it happen, and I'll give you the Tears of Zen. Waiting for this exact moment, Louise quickly shook hands with Kaji to seal the deal, exclaiming, fantastic, it's officially done. Like a true buddy, Kaji promptly added, no more words needed. Fast forward to the present. Outside Lucia's room, Louise knocked softly on the door. It creaked open, revealing a cheerful Lucia who exclaimed, oh my. Louise, when did you arrive back? With a big, bright grin, Louise answered, I'm here, he thought to himself. Time to kick this operation into gear. Inside the room, Lucia greeted him with a warm smile. Oh goodness, you're back. Louise, catching her gaze, eagerly replied, Lucia, I'm feeling bored. Want to play with me? Lucia beamed like a blooming flower, responding affectionately, oh, it seems our Luis is quite bored. Isn't he? She gently beckoned Luis inside, saying, come on into my room. As he crossed the threshold, Luis gazed around in awe, shouting, wow, this spacious room has shelves on the walls filled with books and vibrant potted plants. Luis strolled behind Lucia, beaming, your room is absolutely stunning. Lucia returned his smile and said, haha, thanks, I haven't done much decorating, but I'm glad you like it. Suddenly, Luis's eyes lit up as he noticed something in the corner. He squinted and exclaimed, puzzled by the mysterious instrument, Luis turned to Lucia, asking, what is that? Startled. Lucia responded, oh, that? Then she explained, it's a lute. It's used for performances. Luis's excitement bubbled over as he clapped his hands, urging Lucia, oh, Lucia, I want to hear it, please. Play it for me, flustered. Lucia stammered, wait, this is? Luis tugged at her dress, looking up with wide, innocent eyes, begging, please, come on. With a defeated sigh, Lucia finally agreed. Fine, I'll play a little for you. She sat on her bed with the lute, ready to perform for the eager Luis, who perched on a chair before her. Lucia took a calming breath, exhaling softly to steady herself. Her nimble fingers glided over the strings, conjuring melodies that soared, and Luis was entranced by the beautiful sounds Lucia conjured. He was deeply touched, his thoughts swirling as he admired her music, sensing the poetic harmony between Lucia and her instrument. So beautiful, he mused, feeling transported into the moment, silently cherishing the sight of Lucia playing and the music itself. It truly was enchanting. A satisfied smile crossed his face, as he thought, no wonder that guy is head over heels for her. When the music concluded, Lucia paused, letting out a soft sigh. Overwhelmed with emotion, Luis sprang up, cheering, bravo, bravo. Lucia chuckled shyly, replying, it's been a while since I played, so it wasn't all that great. Luis quickly disagreed, his eyes shimmering with excitement as he said, what are you saying? That was an absolutely incredible performance. Lucia, still flustered, replied, really? That's such a relief. Suddenly, Luis leaped up with enthusiasm, shouting, sister, I want to try playing. Too. Confused, Lucia asked in shock. Huh? She questioned again. You mean the lute? Luis nodded vigorously. Yeah, I want to learn to play as beautifully as you do. Lucia turned toward a cabinet, seemingly searching for something while saying, if you're interested, just wait a second. Luis stood by, utterly puzzled. Lucia rummaged through the cabinet, contemplating, I'm sure I stored it in here, right? Meanwhile, Luis peeked over, curious about her search. Lucia pulled out an instrument similar to her lute from the wardrobe, saying, found it. She handed the instrument to Luis, saying, here, take this. Luis eagerly reached out, saying, what is this? He happily clutched the instrument Lucia had gifted him. She explained, it's a present for you. This was mine when I was a kid. I think it would suit you perfectly, so I'm giving it to you. Filled with sincere joy, Luis exclaimed, wow, thank you. Sister, I'll practice hard. Lucia smiled and replied, okay, but it's getting late, so our lessons start tomorrow, he declared. Luis responded, sounds good. He waved goodbye to Lucia as he left with the instrument, saying, good night, sis. She waved back, replying, yeah, sleep tight. Once he was back in his room, Luis plopped down on his bed, marveling at the instrument Lucia had gifted him. Phi floated nearby and chimed in. You mentioned making her sing again to help her move on? Luis began tuning the strings of the instrument, nodded, and confirmed. Exactly. Phi scratched its head, looking puzzled. Wouldn't it just be faster to use magic on her memories? Luis responded firmly. No way. That might cover things up temporarily, but she could get hurt again any moment. He lifted the instrument high and proclaimed, you get back what you give. Good deeds bring good in return. That's my life philosophy. Luis grinned and continued. They've treated us with kindness, so we must repay their kindness in kind. Phi sighed, replying, sigh. We're deviating from the script again. Luis quickly responded, not at all. Beside him, I, confused and surprised, turned to him. Luis sat on the bed, picked up the instrument, and started playing a beautiful tune, saying, this will work out. Just trust me this time. 3 days later, a vibrant melody filled the air coming from within the house. It was Luis, honing his skills on the instrument in his room. Facing him was Lucia, who was left speechless in amazement. Suddenly, Luis turned to her and asked, "How was that? I think I've improved." Caught off guard, she stammered, Yes, you play really well." Luis returned to his sheet music and asked, "Let me see. Am I playing this section correctly?" Lucia thought to herself in awe. This kid is truly brilliant. As Luis played, completely lost in his music, Lucia marveled at his talent. He had only practiced for 1 day and already had a firm grasp of it. By the second day, he memorized all the basics. And on this day, he was able to play a challenging piece that would leave adults struggling. As she watched Luis, Lucia thought in disbelief. Where on earth did this incredible child come from? After finishing the piece, Luis exclaimed joyfully, "Sister, teach me the next song," Lucia replied, flustered. "Oh, sure." The sky outside the guild hall was brilliantly clear and blue. On a street corner, a crowd was gathering, buzzing with excitement. A notice from the Epic Guild was boldly displayed on the wall, calling for contestants for a night of melody performances. Suddenly, a hand burst out and snagged that paper down. It was a tall figure draped in a fur cloak. It was Day One, accompanied by his lackeys. Holding the paper, he stated, "A performance featuring a beauty. What's this? Singing?" A man stepped forward to clarify. "Indeed, sir, it's an event that happens every year. Those who sign up will take part in a singing contest and stand to win cash prizes." A girl stood front and center, holding coins for the winner, and cheers erupted from the crowd. The man went on, "It's the most renowned event of all. I heard this year's contestants have been practicing really hard." After hearing this, Dwimen flashed a mysterious smile and said, "Oh really?" Confused, the man asked again, "Excuse me, what do you mean by that?" Dewan crumpled the announcement paper in his hands and replied in his enigmatic tone, "The more people gather, the louder the screams will echo." With a chilling laugh and eerie eyes, he turned and moved on, leaving the songstress. Bright and early on the lively streets of town, Balos's face twisted in discomfort as he clutched his stomach and staggered about. Each step brought him so much anguish he felt ready to cry. His voice barely a whisper. He lamented, "I'm losing my mind." He held his forehead and sighed heavily. "Oh boy, I'm really feeling my age. Just a few days of drinking, and I'm utterly worn out." Approaching the inn, a familiar sound reached his ears, and he halted abruptly, pondering. That's the sound of a bop. Music spilled from the house, the notes dancing joyfully. Suddenly, he burst through the inn's door, exclaiming, "Lucia, are you finally back to singing?" However, inside was Luis, perched on a chair, strumming the bop and singing. Spotting Balo, Luis chimed in, "Oh my. Look who finally decided to show up." Realizing it wasn't Lucia, Balo's face fell, and he exclaimed, "What, Sir Luis? It can't be." Just seconds later, Luis wrinkled his nose and, with exaggerated disgust, said, "Good grief. You lightweight. Don't tell me you drank with Siru all night too." Hearing this, Balo plopped down in a chair, chuckling while scratching his head. "Haha. Well, that kid wouldn't let me escape. But hey, isn't this a bop? I've never seen you play an instrument before." Luis eagerly plucked a few notes and replied, "But isn't this a bop? I've never seen you wield an instrument before." Hearing that, "Oh, this? Sister Lucia gifted it to me." He followed up with what he had earlier heard. "The tunes you just played are not easy. When did you start learning?" "I only started yesterday as soon as I arrived here." Balo gasped in disbelief, exclaiming, "What? So, in less than a week, you've practiced enough to sound like that?" Sir Luis replied with smug confidence. "Yep. I gave it a shot. And it wasn't too difficult." So conceited, Balo thought. Feeling a bit irked, he pressed on. "Drinking is one thing. But are you handling the task I assigned you? You don't need to worry about that." "Sir, all the remaining spirit herbs in Luagan are being gathered." With a gleeful grin, Balo proudly showcased his findings. "Thanks to Tui's help, I've managed to gather about 20 low-grade spirit herbs." Sir Luis's expression darkened as he sneered. "Those are all low-grade spirit herbs? You only found 20? Stunned by Luis's remark, Balo froze like a statue. His mood soured as he replied despondently, "It took so much effort just to find that many. Recently, searching for spirit herbs here feels like trying to grab stars from the sky." Luis pondered to himself, realizing that while they are rare items, it was odd for such a big port city to lack spiritual herbs. He then asked, "Is there anywhere in this city that researches or cultivates spirit beasts?" Balo looked taken aback and waved his hand as he responded, "Spirit beasts? Sir, I don't think there is. As far as I know, there's no such place. Why do you want to know?" Luis responded with a somber expression, It seems someone besides me is snatching up spiritual herbs in massive quantities. He shared his suspicions with Balo while pondering the situation. Typically, spiritual herbs are meant for spirit beasts or individuals looking to boost their internal energy. If it's a person, they can only utilize a spiritual herb once. Given the limited supply, there's really no need to stockpile them like this. However, if someone is raising a spirit beast, they'd need to supply a large batch of spiritual herbs regularly. Balo raised an eyebrow, asking, Master, based on your logic, if someone is raising a spirit beast in this town, there's no way Tio Yuso wouldn't catch wind of it. Luis Seo crossed his arms, responding, that's the puzzling part. A spirit beast that requires so many spiritual herbs, enough to evade the Baron's scrutiny. Just then, Luis Seo had a sudden thought. He mused. Could it be? Turning to the old man, he asked, Balo, can you find out who's been purchasing the spiritual herbs from the shops? The old man stroked his beard in contemplation, replying, it'll take some time, but with Teo Yuo's assistance, it shouldn't be too tough. Luis Seo added, confirm who these people are, and track the destination of the spiritual herbs they've acquired. Once you identify the location, take Phi with you and do some searching. At the mention of her name, the butterfly fairy Phi fluttered over, while Balo questioned, clearly suspecting that Luis Seo was plotting to pilfer the herbs. I'll follow your orders. But why are we doing this? Sir, he glared at Balo, crossing his arms. What? You think I'm a crook? While I can't be certain yet, that human character might be crazier than we ever guessed. Balo quickly responded. Understood, sir. In that case, I'll just head off for a quick nap. He was about to get up, but Luis Seo stopped him, saying, and where do you think you're off to? Balo looked puzzled, asking, Sir? Luis Seo shut his eyes, waved dismissively, and said, get on with it right now. The old man began to gesture wildly, protesting to Luis Seo. But I just returned. You still have booze. Luis Seo grinned softly, his voice dripping with menace. Looks like our dear Balo gets riled up at the slightest nudge, doesn't he? Maybe we should revisit some old times. Hearing this, the old man groaned, observing Luis Seo's demeanor and tone. He begrudgingly swallowed his frustration, gripping the doorknob with resentment as he said, I'm heading out right now. Sir. But as soon as he opened the door, he froze. Outside, the street was buzzing with activity, almost like a festive occasion with people gathered, laughing and chatting eagerly, noticing Balo frozen in place. A curious Luis Seo pushed past him to inquire, what's going on? Why are there so many people? Remembering, the old man replied that the Bountiful Catch Festival was about to kick off. Luis Seo echoed, filled with skepticism. The Bountiful Catch Festival? He promptly said, yes. Even though this city is now a known trading hub, it originally started as a humble fishing village. Each year, they hold the Bountiful Catch Festival to pray for the safety of fishermen venturing out to sea, hoping for a bountiful haul. That festival has been celebrated until today, and the highlight is definitely the Night of the Maidens. After he wrapped up his speech, he inquired again. So, what exactly is this Maidens' Night? Balo eagerly elaborated. It's an evening where gifted singers come together. They compete fiercely for a prize. You really have to see it to believe it, he continued to reminisce. Every time Lucia joined, she snagged first place. Suddenly intrigued, he asked, oh, if that's true, then since we're heading out, I have another task for you. Noticing the puzzled look on the man's face, he crossed his arms and grinned. Sign her up for the Maidens' Night. The scene shifted to Lucia's room, where she sat with a gloomy expression, gazing at her instrument, when a loud voice echoed from outside. Sister Lucia jumped, rushing to the door. It was Louise waiting there. Upon seeing him, she asked, Louis, have you practiced that song I showed you? He chuckled and replied, absolutely. But sis, I've got something to ask you. Lucia perked up. What's up? He made a cute face, poking his index fingers together and pouting. I heard there's a festival happening. Can you take me with you? Just as he finished, C and the lively Khan popped up from behind the two siblings, making a ruckus. What? A festival? That sounds like a blast. We're going too, annoyed. He shot a glance back, thinking, ugh, these kids have ears like hawks. Lucia noticed this and covered her mouth, chuckling as she said, so, you're eager to check out the festival? It makes sense. The atmosphere outside has been buzzing, so you little ones are curious. Resting her chin on her hand, she added with concern, but since it's festival season, we have a swarm of tourists, so we can't just leave the inn empty. While she fretted over what to do, a voice suddenly chimed in, let's go. Everyone turned to see who it was. Mona strutted in, hands on her hips, exclaiming, let's go. Everyone, let's go enjoy the festival. She enthusiastically patted Louisa's head, saying, Our little princesses and princes want to see it. Naturally, we have to join. Right? The little boy beamed. Haha. Lucia then turned to Mona, asking, Are you really going? What about the inn? Mona was still patting the kids' heads as she replied, Closing for one day is totally fine. Plus, we don't have any guests right now. Let's just have a fantastic time today and we can tackle work again tomorrow. Hearing her words, Lucia had no choice but to comply, saying, Yes, ma'am, I'll go get ready. Mona excitedly raised her hand and shouted, Kids, let's go have some fun. In response, the exuberant Khan cheered, Let's go. Afterward, they briefly closed the inn and stepped out onto the streets, where the festival was in full swing. As they walked, Khan asked, There's going to be tons of tasty food at the festival, right? Mona immediately responded, Absolutely. I'll treat you all to some delicious snacks. Khan exclaimed with eagerness, I can't wait. Meanwhile, Luis trailed behind them, observing closely. He thought to himself, Perfect. Everything is unfolding just as planned. Now it's time for the next move. One evening, the sky twinkled with countless stars. Down in the town, it seemed like something intriguing was brewing as all the houses turned off their lights. Looking serene yet somewhat solitary, Phi was outfitted just like a sleuth on a case. Currently, she was sneaking, glancing side to side outside a warehouse. After ensuring the coast was clear, she darted into a nearby barrel, then lifted the barrel lid with her hand and resumed watching the distant building as if she had noticed something suspicious. She gasped softly. Phi pondered what it could be. Could this be the warehouse Balo mentioned? Phi recalled Balo saying that the merchants mainly traded spirit herbs at the warehouse at the far west end of this harbor. Although she didn't know what Master Luis sought at the moment, it was wise to check out that building just in case. The flashback faded, and she boldly declared, All right, I'm the loyal aide of Master Luis. Whatever they're concealing, I'll expose it. With that, she zipped into the building through a window. Inside, 2 guards were stationed, idly playing cards. At that moment, Faye had entered and was dangling from a spider's thread on the ceiling. Then, she landed softly on a distant crate. Meanwhile, one guard, a guy with short brown hair, let out a massive yawn and groaned. I'm so bored. How much longer must we endure this damp warehouse? The guard with long white hair, focused on his cards, replied irritably, Quit your whining. Just draw a card. The boss said he'd call us before the festival wraps up. Just as they were about to continue their game, a loud rumbling noise erupted behind the white-haired guard, startling him significantly. Faye, hiding behind a crate, peeked out and thought, What was that sound? Could it be a feral creature? The 2 guards, however, remained composed. The brown-haired one remarked, It's causing a scene again. The white-haired guard broke the quiet, however, stayed composed. The brown-haired one remarked, It's acting up again. The white-haired guard broke the uneasy silence, saying, Hey, I went last time. It's your turn now. Prompted by that, the brown-haired guard trudged over to a stack of crates and picked one up. As he carried it, he muttered, How much does it need to eat to be satisfied? Meanwhile, Faye had summoned her own troops, a few mice. She commanded one of the mice. In an instant, the mouse darted out. It charged straight into the leg of the guard, carrying the crate. The collision made him lose his footing, and he tumbled, causing the entire crate he held to crash down. On impact, all the spirit herbs within spilled onto the floor. The white-haired guard stared in irritation. You clumsy fool, can't you handle it right? The brown-haired guard shot him a frustrated glance and shouted, What was that? Suddenly, he noticed the scattered contents of the crate and was stunned, thinking, Wait, aren't those spirit herbs? If that's true, does that mean all these crates are stuffed with them? This is serious. I need to figure out where these spirit herbs are headed. With that, while the guards continued their argument, she stealthily flew to the spilled crate of spirit herbs and nestled inside, biding her time to investigate further. Meanwhile, the 2 guards were still quarreling, one blaming the other. This is what happens when you neglect to clean up. That's why we get mice. Faye shifted some of the spirit herbs aside to keep an eye on the movements of the 2 men. The guard with brown hair was furious as he hoisted the crate, muttering curses about the white-haired guy under his breath. Seriously? It's my fault there are mice around here? He expects me to tidy up the warehouse. The brown-haired guard lugged the crate down the staircase, still grumbling. He earns the same as I do. So why does he act like he's my boss? Faye, hiding inside, pondered to herself. These stairs lead down to the cellar. I wonder where they might go. Moments later, the guard transported the crate down into a cellar that opened up to the river, running through the city. He set the crate of spirit herbs down and straightened up to leave. But before exiting, he turned back. He glanced at the gloomy, distant sewer tunnel for a heartbeat. Suddenly, A splash rang out from inside, followed by a chilling scream. It sent goosebumps racing down his spine. Tears filled his eyes as he scrambled away from that spot at lightning speed. Only Finn remained, crouched in the barrel. After a moment, she broke the surface, unable to endure the stifling air any longer. Is he gone? But as soon as she gathered herself, a gigantic dark figure loomed right before her. A few seconds later, once her eyes adjusted, she gasped in shock. Oh my goodness. A monster just materialized. It was a deep blue with 2 glowing red eyes, strange red symbols on its forehead, and fierce spikes resembling some kind of sea beast from the depths. A bizarre blue creature had suddenly emerged. The scene shifts back to the town. Everyone was joyfully celebrating the festival, with children dressed in all sorts of fun costumes. It's a dragon! Run for your lives! Haha. Hey. Hey. Stop right there. Meanwhile, the 2 kids, Si and Khan, were each munching on a skewer of what looked like candy. They shouted together, "This festival is incredible." Mo, standing nearby, heard them and chimed in excitedly. "Isn't it awesome? They say the Full Bay Prayer Festival is the best on the entire frozen continent. There's definitely a reason for that." Luis So was keenly watching the crowd, thinking, "This festival is massive. I've never seen anything like it before. It's almost like a parade, right?" While he was lost in his thoughts, a food skewer suddenly popped up in front of his face. "Here you go. This is for you," he said in confusion. "Huh? What is this?" It was Lucia who had offered it with excitement. "This is an iced fruit skewer. You can only get this treat at this festival. You'll absolutely love it." Hearing that, he took a bite, and immediately he thought to himself, "Wow, this tastes just like the candied fruit skewers I had in my past life." Noticing that Luis had tried it, Lucia turned and asked, "So, is it good? It's your first time tasting it, right?" He chuckled at her question and replied playfully, "Haha, yes, it's delicious." As they chatted, a familiar melody floated in from afar, and Luis remarked, "Huh? Is that a Bahang lute? Sounds like someone's playing it." Lucia suddenly looked a bit anxious and said, They must be holding auditions for the Night of Beauties." Spotting his opportunity, he quickly grabbed Lucia's hand and pulled her toward the music. As he ran, he exclaimed, "This is going to be interesting. Let's check it out. Come on, sis." But Lucia still seemed worried about something. Stammering, "Huh? Sure." A little while later, they both reached the audition venue.